Mesdames et messieurs, the greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin. This is going to be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jaracz, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
I am a little shocked today.
I know it's been an exciting day. You know, we normally tape on Wednesdays, and today we taped on Thursday because it's the day of the IOC presidential vote, and it's a shocker.
We're only about an hour out, so we are fresh on this one.
Yeah, so it's been a very exciting day. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. I will say that for me. I'm coming to you from Northwest Indiana, from my childhood bedroom, where I will be for an undetermined amount of time because my mom had I was going to be here for some expected eye surgery, and she ended up in the hospital with some unexpected problems with her heart. So yeah, I'm here for a while, and it'll be fun trying to do the show from my bedroom.
Well, we are nothing if not flexible. I mean, we've done it from hotel rooms. We've been in closets. I remember one time you had an ironing board as a desk.
Yes.
As always, we make it work. And
That is
very, very speedy recovery to Ma Jaracz. I think I can speak for everyone and say, hang in there, both of you.
So she's doing all right. She's making some progress, and that is good. Yes, we did have the IOC presidential vote today. Big, exciting news on who is going to be T-Bach's successor. And we will get to that in our IOC news section. But first, we have book club today. And I find it ironic that we are talking about Sydney Collier's book, Beyond Expectations, An Extraordinary Equestrian Journey from Deadly Diagnosis to the Paralympic Games, which Sydney wrote with Heather Wallace. And Sydney was a normal kid and one day had trouble seeing the blackboard, and what was supposed to be a routine visit to the eye doctor turned into a diagnosis of Wyburn-Mason syndrome, a life-threatening condition that causes arteries and veins to grow together and causes vascular malformations in the brain. I kind of feel like her parents, when they went to the eye doctor and ended up in the hospital, it's kind of an interesting parallel. So Book Club Claire is here to chat with us about the book. Take a listen to our conversation about Beyond Expectations. Claire, welcome back. We are talking Beyond Expectations, Defying All Odds in Pursuit of a Lifelong Dream by Sydney Collier and Heather Wallace. Sydney is a TKFLASTAN, our para-dressage writer, so we are really excited to read her book. What do you got for us, Claire?
I have a nice, short little fun read that can definitely be said that it was written by a 20-something with her own unique style, which I don't think we've gotten yet. So I kind of wanted to know your thoughts about that.
It was fun for me because I heard Sydney in my head, having met her and spoken to her and kept up with her since we spoke to her. It was fun because it felt like I was talking to her again and hearing the background and the pieces, and so much we didn't know about how she got to where she was when we met her. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a nice little read and a happy ending, which we don't always get.
Right. And well, I will agree that it's a fun read and it's definitely Sydney's voice. It is published by Trafalgar Square, which is kind of a horse-focused press. And so what I really liked about that was we got a lot of horsey stuff. And I really understood horse people better. I mean, I know horse people are horse people, but horse people there's something special with the people who really love horses and the bond between human and horse. And that really came through in this book.
Yeah,
None of us are horse girls.
No, I'm
No,
definitely not.
not.
I am probably the person on this podcast that wants equestrian off of the Olympic roster completely and Paralympic roster, just because I think that it would save so much money and stress. So reading this was interesting because it did open up my eyes. It also opened up my eyes that she grew up right next to me. She grew up in Ann Arbor the Ann Arbor area, and that's where my family was for many years. So the fact that she was just north of us was kind of cool to hear about. And apparently she went to Skyline High School, whether that was in person or online, because of all the stuff that she was doing. But that was impressive for me. I'm looking at the ghostwriter. Her website is called timidrider.com. So I'm sure that she also has experience with horses. And that explains a lot, because when she is bringing in her knowledge of equestrian, it really does come through. And it is easy, like for someone like me who knows nothing about horses, to understand. I did like this book. I think I enjoyed when she got a little more goofy, dancing with the president of Azerbaijan and not realizing it, and some of the fun quirks that she had. And I did enjoy the fact that Heather Wallace, it didn't seem like her hand was in too much of the book. Sometimes you can kind of tell when a ghostwriter is taking over, but I didn't sense it that much when I was reading Sydney's book. So that was nice. What was the part of the story for Sydney that you did not know that kind of surprised you the most?
I didn't realize that so much of her disability was based not on the disorder she was born with, but the strokes. Because, we don't ask a lot of questions when we talk to the athletes, especially the para athletes, about kind of how they got to where they were. And I knew she had had strokes, and I didn't realize how unaware they were of what was going to happen for such a long period of her childhood. She goes to this eye doctor appointment, I think she was 7 or 8, and, "Oh, by the way, you have this," she thinks, "Oh, I just can't see the board in school," and then her entire life's changed from this eye doctor appointment. And I don't think I understood kind of how dramatic her life took a new course throughout her childhood.
I don't think I realized how compressed her para-dressage riding career was, from first getting on the horse again and getting into dressage to the Paralympics in Rio. I didn't realize she was going through so much so quickly. And I think in a way that affected her in terms of growing up. There's a lot near the end where she's reflecting back on who she was, because now almost 10 years have passed, and you can see some self-reflection and some growth. But when you think about a teenager who is living far beyond anyone's predictions because of her syndrome, and is going through continually debilitating strokes, how that all works together and she still gets through the top, there's a lot of grit there and a lot of determination.
Definitely. And I did listen to your podcast with her from 2021. I want to say it was April, and her kind of gearing up for her bid for the Tokyo Games. And I was surprised at how little was mentioned about what I had read. I had read about half of the book by the time I listened to the podcast episode again. And I went, wow, there was a lot that they didn't cover. They just went, and like Alison said, they went straight into the dressage portion of it. And her life was tough for those, 10 years, from like 7 to 17, where it's strokes and the disease that she has and everything like that. So a lot of that was surprising to me. Was there a part of her life, like in her competitive life, that kind of stuck out for you besides Rio?
Okay, this is where I this is where I have some faults with the book, because I couldn't understand the competitive life very well. We went from competition to competition. I didn't understand what horse she was riding. The catch horse thing was interesting because she didn't own a horse at the time, so in order to do competitions, she did ride something called the catch horse, which is kind of like whatever horse was available. And that's allowed in para dressage, not necessarily on able-bodied riding. And so that was really interesting to learn about, but I got confused with the going all over the country and riding all these different horses whom we all got introduced to, because it's a very horsey book. And that was fine and interesting because you learned how different breeds of horses acted. But then I didn't understand her qualifying for the World Equestrian Games, and then I didn't understand necessarily the steps that it got to the Paralympics. I just got kind of lost in that section.
I guess I kind of let that gloss over me in a way, just kind of flow over me because I agree. I was definitely confused because she was saying she needed points, which we've heard before in different sports, but how that was all working. And I agree. The catch riding was amazing. Like, how do you get on a horse you don't know? We talk about this in modern pentathlon, but this is a whole other level because this is para and a side of her body doesn't work in the same way as an able-bodied rider, and the horse has to ignore certain physical gestures of hers, that those aren't messages to the horse. So these horses, the way that they're trained and the relationship is so special and skilled. The one part of the competition section that I couldn't get out of my head was when she was at the competition and the trainer was on drugs. I don't know if that was what she thought or what she discovered later, but that the trainer just didn't show up and she was having to handle the tasks of the trainer and the horse wasn't being cared for properly. And it reminded me every time we talk to an athlete, the athlete will always credit their team, whether it be their family or, whoever their supporters or their coach. But there's always these people who wax the skis or take care of the horse or, set up your training plan, all these people that come into play. And obviously with para athletes, there's a lot more people involved, all the physical therapists and the adaptive equipment people. And that the trainer's just like, oh yeah. And the way that Sydney kind of threw it out there, like, oh yeah, we found out that this trainer had a drug problem. And it was such a young person way to say it. Like I, as an old lady, would be like, you would not believe what happened. We found this whole thing and like give you the whole background. She's like, oh yeah, he was on drugs. Then we got somebody else and it was fine. I loved that young voice coming through, her voice coming through in that section.
At the same time, I'm sure she didn't want to make it a big deal. She doesn't mention the person by name, so, all those kinds of things.
Don't get sued.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
it's a small world. So
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that got me the most was kind of talking about the personalities of the horses. I thought that was really cute how, even the pony that she started with all the way up to the horses that she rode on her journey to Rio, each one was kind of different in their own way. She never put down any of the horses. She just kind of said, "Oh, they all have their own quirks and stuff." And that, I think, we were discussing how, this is definitely a horsey book, and you could definitely tell, a horse person is writing this because they are allowing a lot of their knowledge of these animals, these massive animals, which scare me to death, to come through. And I thought that was really cool of her to do that. Did you find any interest in the family life that she was talking about? She talked a lot about her mom who was traveling with her, a little bit about the quirks of her dad. Did any of those stick out to you at all?
I can't remember what book we read, but I remember saying, I wish they had written it jointly with his wife. And I almost wish I had gotten a section of this from her mother. Because I'm so curious because as a mother myself, I know that taking your kid to the eye doctor, taking your kid to the hospital, and from the child's perspective is one thing. And clearly her parents did a lot to protect her from some really horrible things that were probably happening behind the scenes and the conversations that were happening. And I'm so curious what both of her parents, given that they have such different personalities, were going through. I mean, taking your kid to that cyber knife treatment, I can't imagine that. I cannot imagine what that must have been like where you're just sitting there. And then you've got two other kids. She had two brothers who, there's a whole phenomenon called the glass child, where the siblings of a child with disabilities or with medical issues, and you have to protect them in a very special way. So I kind of wish we had, I mean, it's not their book, but I would love to talk to them and say, okay, let's have a cup of tea and now tell me what that was like when you're just sitting in the waiting room during that cyber knife treatment.
I agree. Especially in the beginning when we're getting a lot about her discovery and treatment of Wyburn-Mason syndrome. And because Sydney is so young, we only I don't know if what memories are there, or if she is out of it for part of her treatment, what does she know and what does she have to piece together to tell us this story? And I really wanted her mom's perspective, her dad's perspective as well, to flesh out that story a little bit and to give it a little bit more. I also wondered what happened with the Wyburn Mason. I know she's living with it, but she says at the end she's the only one living with the syndrome, and usually it means death at a very, very young age. And once we get past the cyberknife treatment, we get word of strokes here and there, and that's what's causing more debilitation, but we don't really touch back on the Wyburn Mason at all. And one would think that maybe she would be tracked, or that the doctors in Stanford who did her treatments would be really following her closely to understand this disease. And I think that's a thread of the book that we kind of lose. And in a way that's important, because rare diseases like this, when nobody has the disease, there's no money for it. So to kind of keep promoting the syndrome, I think that does a disservice in a way to the entire story.
Almost like we needed an epilogue from the Stanford people.
We
You know,
needed
to
a lot of epilogues, let me tell you, because I get that we want to end on a high with Rio, but the book was written in 2024 and we lose out. And she does talk about post Rio starting to train for Tokyo or go for Tokyo, but we don't get any of that story. And I know that's a down note to end on, and we don't necessarily want to do that, but you kind of wonder what happened and what's next, because we're left with so much hope, but that hope kind of ends in 2017, 2018, 2019, and then what's happened? And maybe that's a different book, because we don't know the end of that story, but there's something missing here in a way, for me at least. And maybe that's where this one ends, and that's all of her life she wants to share. And
she hasn't had enough time yet to reflect on those years.
yeah,
It could be she is young, and 10 years, we were saying there's this 10-year period of where all these things happen. And 10 years from now, will she be able to then go back to this portion, that 2018 forward?
true. And I wish we didn't go to Tokyo, mention Tokyo at all, and just ended with that section.
Though I wonder if our knowledge of that section ruins it for us.
Right, because you interviewed her in April of 21, right before the qualifications for Tokyo. So I would definitely see that. When it comes to her family, I have to give them a lot of credit, because to be an equestrian parent, it seems to require a lot of money and time. Like there are football parents and baseball parents where you're going on travel teams and you have to wake up at the crack of dawn on a Saturday morning for an all-day tournament, and then you don't get back until late, and practices and all this. And equestrian is like times a million. Because you also have to deal with a giant animal for the most part. And so especially her mother, who took on a lot of the duties of getting her to New York, and sometimes they were in Texas and sometimes they were in Florida, and there was a lot of that going on. So it was interesting to see how her mother dealt with that. Her father, at some points, her father making the offhand comments, sounds a lot like my dad, kind of ill-timed comments. It's like, this probably, those dads are just like that, I guess. By the way, your great grandma just died. It's like, wait, what? So I appreciated the two of them for sticking together and for supporting her even through all of her medical stuff, to come together and say, well, we are still going to allow you to take part in your dream of riding horses, and make sure that you can achieve that goal. So a lot of credit to them for sure. They also, I mean, if you look at pictures of Sydney, I mean, she had a nose piercing. Her hair is always different colors. So they really allow her to be the free spirit. And that does emote in the book itself as well. I also appreciated that. When I listened to the podcast, I don't think you guys covered Rio a whole lot. Was there anything in the book that surprised you about her Rio experience?
I thought it was interesting. It actually was in the very beginning of the book when she talked about fighting with the officials to be allowed to walk the arena, because of her vision, she needs to count paces and things like that. She can't just look at an arena and get that absorbed. And what was interesting to me is so many times when we talk to Paralympians and para-athletes, they're fighting with officials. And I'm thinking, you're a Paralympic official. Could you be a little more flexible? It's like you're dealing with people with multiple different abilities and disabilities. And the whole point of the Paralympics is to show how high level these people can compete at. But you have to be flexible. You have to use a running blade or you have to use an adaptive aid. And that seemed like such a simple thing to be allowed to do. And yet she's fighting with the officials until the last minute to just be able to walk the arena.
Yeah, I agree. That bit was a surprise for me as well. And I wonder how many of the officials came from the Equestrian Federation versus did you have local people that they hired or had volunteers to go through this, and what's going on in the local organization's mindset versus what needed to happen to give everybody a fair shake.
Yeah, I would expect dressage people are very strict in protocol. It's one of those sports, right? I mean,
Mhm.
all officials are strict. That's their point, to keep the rules. But I would think dressage people are even stricter, though I would love to hang out with them.
I can see your points for sure when it and we've all had experiences now with the media at a games, since you've both went to Paris on media credentials and as well as Beijing. You kind of see where the locals come into play, how the volunteers come. You both have seen Rising Phoenix, the documentary about the Paralympics, which covers both London and Rio, and we know that Rio Paralympics was very like, is this even going to happen? Because there was such bad organization. So how much of that came into play with it? And by the way, if you have not, listeners, if you have not seen Rising Phoenix, it's on Netflix, it's a documentary. Please watch it because it is phenomenal. I think you guys talked about it many
Yeah.
years ago,
Oh,
but
totally agree with you.
And features another Sukhlastani, Matt Stutzman, and where
yes.
I absolutely fell in love with him watching that movie. So yeah, we were like, after we saw that, we're like, Matt needs to be on the show.
Yes, for sure. And I really enjoyed hearing her perspective on Rio because it was a very interesting Olympics to watch from afar, and to get the Paralympic experience and see how much she enjoyed it, how much she enjoyed, all the free stuff. She of course she would mention all the cool free stuff, which I was very curious about, and the duffel bags of stuff, and how she went through processing and didn't realize she should only try on like one thing of each. She wanted to try on everything, and they kind of knocked on her door and said, "Sydney, you have to go." So I enjoyed that. It was good to hear. I was sad because, again, you guys talked to her coming up to Tokyo. The book talked about that, but she did not end up going to Tokyo for the Paralympics, nor Paris. So I did not do my due diligence and follow up as to what's happening with her now. On her website, it still has her with All in One, the horse that she was with when she was interviewed by you. But I don't know how up to date that is with all the stuff that's happened in the past 7 or 8 years. But it is something where I hope she's doing well, and I hope that she's still riding in some way, although it does seem like she's doing a lot of public speaking as well.
Before we get off what you were just saying, I love how no matter how big of a star these athletes are that we talk to, they all love processing and they all love talking about processing. And Simone Biles and the basketball stars in Paris, they still were showing all the cool stuff they got. I don't think that ever gets old for any of these athletes, which I love. All of a sudden, they're kids in candy stores and they're like, "Oh, look, we got new Nike socks." And I love that.
Well, if Team USA wants to really do a great promotional campaign, they should have a lucky winner that gets to go through processing and follow them through, just a random person. And they get to do all the processing stuff. They get to be on the Instagram story or YouTube thing. You know how much fun that would be? Yeah, I would totally do that. Hey, Team USA, if you need somebody, I'll give you my number.
I was going to say, or they could send a couple of old lady podcasters through. See what happens.
So I'm casually looking up what is going on with Sydney. One thing I forgot to mention, because it's on the back of the book, she's in a documentary called Para-Gold that came out in 2022. And I really wanted to, when I flipped over the book after I was done reading it, I'm like, we didn't hear anything about that either. And maybe at some point you had to stop writing, but she is still writing 4 to 5 times a week. So she is still out there in the saddle.
And she does not have Journey anymore. Journey has passed on. He crossed the Rainbow Bridge. But her new service dog, his name is Logan, and is also a poodle, which I had to laugh because that was like the one dog that she didn't want. She's like, as long as it's not a poodle. And then it ended up being a poodle. But
And she's actually training a dog to replace Logan.
oh,
Now they got I want to say in a matter of months, there's a new dog being that Logan, because I guess at some point the dog becomes too old to do the job. They get to retire. So Logan and the puppy are working with her right now. This is a girl who loves animals and animals love her. I love all the pictures where the dog is in the picture, the horse is in the picture. It's like, oh, you can always trust a girl if animals love her. And that's the nice thing about, I think that really comes through in this book, is how much she loves the horses and the horses love her. And that I love about this, because that I think is something that came through to us when we spoke to her, is how much Sydney just loves the horses.
and something that might not have come through in any of the other books. I don't think we've had books with service animals, but how hard it is to bring them overseas to different countries, because certain countries will not allow, an animal, period, because for, I believe it was Azerbaijan, they kind of train them to be more defensive than anything else and aggressive. And so when they saw Journey and was very surprised by this docile, subservient dog that was helping, they didn't even send Journey to Brazil because they were too nervous about the quarantining restrictions. So it was good to get those kinds of pieces of information for sure. Final thoughts on the book before we wrap it up?
Okay. I'm going to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer. I enjoyed this book. I think it's a good read. I did think there was a lot of telling without showing. There was a lot of, I have to pay tribute to people, so let me shove something in there about paying tribute to different people in my life who have been there for me. And I think there were missed opportunities. The way she talks about her mentor, Jonathan, comes through at times, but that's not things aren't woven into the book, into the full story as well as I hoped they would be woven into the full story. Jonathan comes, he's a mentor, he's very important to her. They work on getting dressage into a bigger competition, but by that point I believe Jonathan had passed away, if I remember correctly. But we didn't learn anything about that work that they were doing together. There was just a lot of, Jonathan's my mentor. He's so important to me. This has happened. They are so important to me. We didn't have the money. Well, I never understood what mom and dad did for a living, to put that into context of, I know equestrian is super expensive, but every time she said, oh, that was too much. Well, we only heard like, oh, I had to fly Spirit Airlines again. And really useful details like that, showing us, oh, we have to deal with packed planes and trying to fit a dog on and all these other hassles, instead of telling us that. I think that is really where parts of the book didn't work for me as well.
Sydney has every right, given what she has been through, to be an absolutely horrible person, and she's not. And she is so joyful and so lovely and very funny and so self-deprecating, and it just makes me, I absolutely agree, there are missed opportunities in the book. It was a lot of fun to read this and get that joy from her, and seeing how tough things had been, and to remind myself to say, "You know what? Lots of horrible things happen to a lot of people, and you can take it a lot of ways." And the way that she has made her life what it is a testament to her and to her family and to all of their resilience. And best of all, I have a very great new phrase involving a pretzel that I can't say on the show, that I have already yelled out in the kitchen during a rather disastrous escapade with some sourdough starter. So For that alone, I am grateful for this book.
And I will
Listen-
say, I will say, this was also a great reminder of how, extroverted she is. And I am not as nearly as extroverted, but like that personality trait, I think helps so much in getting to know other people and getting through a lot of stuff. Obviously, she went through a pretty dark time in dealing with traditional school. We kind of get a glimpse of that, but her personality really helps her get through a lot, and I think that's a testament to, like, making choices and just being who you are and sticking with your guns can be a lifeline.
Definitely. I think I don't see a lot of those flaws in the book just because it made it an easy read for me. If you want a nice little short book that only takes you a couple days, couple sittings to read, this is a very good book for that. If you don't want a deep dive, if you don't want a 500-page book all about it, because I'm sure she could have expanded the what 20 years that we got from her into 500 pages because she dealt with so much. But it's just a nice little book to tell you the story and for you to maybe investigate your own and these people endure a lot of difficulties and hardships, and we are made more aware of it through these books. So I appreciated that for sure. So I
Excellent,
guess
Claire.
that wraps it up.
What's on tap for our next selection?
We are going to be going back to Athens 2004. So a few years ago, 21 years ago. Don't remind
Oh,
me.
shush. Oh, my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Back when I was a freshman in college.
Oh,
and
shush right there.
Okay.
Jeez.
We're going to be looking at pole vault. So track and field. So I'm super excited about that. The book is about Tim Mack, the pole vaulter, and the title of the book is called Above and Beyond, Tim Mack, the Pole Vault, and the Quest for Olympic Gold. And it is written by Bill Livingston. So I'm seeing it on my Kindle library, so it's definitely something you can find there, or it's probably on the bookshop site if you want to use the affiliate. And you'll find it a bunch of different places, and I'm curious to see what this guy's all about, because I've heard the name, but I don't know his story at all.
Excellent. I am looking forward to that as well. He is from the Cleveland area. So we will
What is
look
with
on tap.
Cleveland jumpers? My goodness, what's
I know. We
happening
got pole
there?
vault in the blood. You got to vault over that river to get to the other side of the city.
The river that's on fire, you mean?
Yes, exactly. All right, Claire. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.
See you then.
Thank you so much, Claire. You can follow Claire on Insta at CNatTravels. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. Also, you can follow Sydney on Insta at Sid's Paraquest. Did you see her sleeve tattoo?
I have not. I will pull that up when we come up, but is it impressive? Of course it's impressive. It's Sydney.
Amazing. It is so detailed. It's got her first dog and one of her horses in there. I know.
Well, everything she does is kind of amazing. We spoke to her and we've texted with her, and she's just a really wonderful person. So that makes it very easy to like her.
She is, and a great spokesperson for rare diseases as well as being an advocate for more para-equestrian, which is a lot of fun to watch. I will say that. You can get your copy of Beyond Expectations from our bookshop.org storefront. We have it featured on our book club list at the top of our page. That is bookshop.org/shop/flamealivepod. Anytime you make a purchase through our bookshop.org affiliate link, you help independent bookstores and also, very importantly, this independent podcast, because we earn a commission off of any purchase made through our link. If you are in the market for books, please go to bookshop.org/shop/flamealivepod today.
Oh mon dieu.
Remember how Thomas Joly, the artistic director for the ceremonies for the Paris Olympics, got a lot of death threats and complaints about his work? Well, there are 7 people now charged in connection with alleged cyberbullying against Thomas Joly. He got a number of death threats and homophobic and anti-Semitic abuse on social. The Associated Press reported that the 7 people range in age from 22 to 79. Come on, you're old enough to know better. That's what I think. The allegations carry the weight of potential prison time and heavy fines. So we will have a verdict at a later date.
Good. You know, a lot of athletes during the Olympics and Paralympics dealt with a lot of cyberbullying. And we'll have to do, I really want to do a show on that as well as what's been happening. But good, good. I mean, why do you think that this is okay? Because you didn't like a show, you're gonna threaten somebody with death. There's a human being on the other side of that phone. Calm down.
Right. Yeah. Death, I don't like it to death is a pretty big leap.
I know we have a clean rating, but can I say FAFO? Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. We have a bunch of news from Milan-Cortina. First off, the American ABC has reported that the bobsled track is ready for testing. The structure was finished on time on March 16th. The ice is being laid. It will be finished on Sunday. On Monday, the 24th, there will be 60 bobsled, luge, and skeleton athletes to start the testing. And then another interesting tidbit that they had was that the Cortina Athletes Village is also going up this month, and they will be living in prefab mobile homes. It's a temporary village, and they will house up to 1,400 athletes.
Hopefully the wallpaper won't be stuck up with tape like it was in the Beijing mountain.
Hopefully the walls won't be stuck up with tape.
Well, no, and we're going to talk more about the IOC report, but Milan-Cortina's report said that the sliding track is in good shape, and it wasn't just the organizers saying that, it was the IOC members taking a look at that.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
it looks like we may.
Things could
Should I
happen.
jinx it?
No, they did. I did see a little bit of the Milan-Cortina report from the IOC session. I'm a little bit behind on my session watching. They did say that Hockey Arena has a very tight timeline, but they are confident they will get it done. That's something else to keep an eye on. Other news from Milan-Cortina, the torches will be announced and released on April 14th. So that is coming up very soon. So we're getting one step closer to all the stuff happening.
Okay, so I want to just make a quick, hopeful prediction. I want it to look like an icicle.
Ooh.
I know they can't change it now because that's a brilliant idea, but like pointy and like crystally looking, that would be kind of in that. Everything is kind of futuristic with the Milan design, so I want it to look like an icicle.
That would be cool. And if not, Salt Lake City, French Alps.
Take my idea. I won't even copyright it, though I would like a little of the funds, if you don't mind.
Back to construction news, the ice works that they've been building in Milan, I guess the permanent works are complete, and they are very excited to show how you could do speed skating in a temporary venue. So that'll be interesting because they weren't going to build a permanent speed skating track, which on the one hand is good because it's expensive. On the other hand, you don't have a track to attract new athletes. So, where are they going to train if they want to get into the sport? But budget's a concern these days. It really is. So I'll be interested to see how temporary facilities play a part in attracting or deterring people from joining the sport.
LA has been on my brain this week because I've been writing about all kinds of things with LA. So the big one, boxing is back.
Boxing is back.
So the IOC Executive Board gave provisional approval to putting boxing back on the program, mostly because the new international federation, World Boxing, got enough countries to join up and leave IBA, formerly AIBA, which is in all kinds of trouble. So I think we're going to see boxing in LA.
I'm glad for the athletes. That's
Exactly.
for sure. And I'm glad that they've got something more stable, and hopefully this is going to be a more permanent fix. We shall see about that, but looking forward to having boxing competition. I don't know if LA has to organize it. I'm hoping World Boxing has to organize it much.
The plan is, because World Boxing was given the provisional approval as the international federation, that they will be organizing the tournament. Because that was why it was kicked off, because the IOC is like, we're not doing this again. We
Right.
have a big enough party to plan, do your own boxing tournament. So World Boxing's going to put it together because they've got countries now on 5 continents, which is kind of one of the requirements from the IOC to get recognized as the international federation.
Little bit of news from Brisbane. Tennis Australia would like Brisbane 2032 to renovate the tennis facilities in
Of
the
course it
area.
would.
And they say it's going to cost $113 million. And if it doesn't happen, they might move the tennis competitions to Melbourne.
How far is Melbourne from Brisbane?
Long way.
That's what I thought.
Because Sydney to Melbourne is, somebody's going to yell at me if I'm wrong, but that is a few days drive because I have done it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a big country.
I know it's a big country, which is why I asked the question. Yeah. Oh, okay. So this is not ideal.
No, not at all. We shall see, because that's part of the 100-day Brisbane 2032 infrastructure review. So we will dig into that a little bit as well in the coming week and see what else we can find out there. But know that there's going to be some issues over facilities for 2032. It makes me wonder, and we'll talk about this next week too, because we're going to talk about T-Bach's term as president and what he's accomplished and the changes that have, and what he hasn't accomplished and the changes that have been made. And this is why I keep coming back to, Australia is a great games host, but was it wise to award 2032 so early?
You know, people are questioning awarding LA 28 as early as they did now because of issues that have come up. So maybe this will be that the new system that they put in for awarding the games didn't work as well as they'd hoped. But again, you're kind of always fighting the last war. You know, they were
Right.
running into the problem of not having host cities.
Right. So what do you do?
You elect a new president is what you do.
I see. New IFC president elected just a couple hours before we started recording. We had 7 candidates. So you imagine that this process is going to take a while, because the voting process is one person has to get the majority. And if there's no majority, they start whittling out the least vote getters. We got this done in 1 round of voting, shocking everybody. And our new IOC president is Kirsty Coventry.
Get used to saying Madam President.
That or Keiko.
I was wondering what we were going to come up with. So, first woman, first African. She is from Zimbabwe. Youngest since Pierre de Coubertin. I mean, this was a surprise, but not a shock, or a shock, but not a surprise. I mean, she was T-Bach's select. She was his pick.
Yes. And of course, there's going to be a lot of theories from journalists on how much he influenced the vote. But you needed 49. She got 49. The other 48 votes broke down. Second place was Juan Antonio Samaranch with 28. Seb Coe with 8. David Lapartien with 4. Moriani Watanabe with 4. Prince Faisal Al Hussein with 2, and Johan Eliasich with 2.
Kirsty Coventry, I mean, the top 3 were the top 3. All the betting lines, everybody was talking about this. Samaranch Jr. has kind of come up at the end here, and people were expecting him to do very well, possibly win. But getting it done in 1 vote really seemed to surprise everyone. And not the least of which was the IOC itself, because during the vote, they get the results and then they just stopped. There was a lot of paper shuffling. There was a lot of confusion. I think everybody was really surprised that they were done.
Right, because it's been, the process of the voting has been compared to the conclave in the Vatican, when you choose a new pope, and it was going to be a long, drawn-out ordeal, and all of a sudden it's done. You've got Simon Burnton from The Guardian, who is live blogging and who just doesn't know what to do. He's a little miffed about it being finished so quickly, and then he starts live blogging about the music that they're playing. And it was just kind of one of those stereotypical sports journalist kind of moves that really annoyed me, to be quite honest, and was uncalled for. But now we're getting all of the stories are coming out with the news, and now with Kirsty Coventry's given a little interview afterwards, and over the next week or so, we'll have a lot more details on behind the scenes, if any of the members will talk to the press and what's happening on in the transition. She won't take office until June. T-Bach's going to stay on for a transition period. And I did read that Bach wanted that to happen because when he came into office, there was no transition, and that really upset him. He had a lot of work to do to get up to speed. So it'll be nice to have a little smoothing over and make this work. I'm amazed and kind of impressed. I mean, this is really a changing of the guard.
I was hoping on the one hand Kirsty Coventry would win because I think that signals from the IOC membership that they're ready. They're ready to make this generational change. To have a woman is a big deal in this organization. We talk about the IOC not changing and it's trying to turn the Titanic. And to have this woman who is very accomplished as an athlete and even during her athletic career really got herself on athletes commissions and worked with the IOC and was part of Zimbabwe's political structure in terms of Minister of Sport. This is a very smart, very accomplished woman. And we all know that doesn't necessarily mean you get a seat at the table. And they gave her the seat. And that is huge. And yes, in many ways, she is a traditionalist like Bach, but optics matter. And to have a 41-year-old woman standing up there makes a huge difference. My favorite moment of the whole process, besides the paper shuffling, was they've announced Coventry. She's walking up, everyone's hugging her, and she's about to step up to the podium, basically just to say her first little words. And she has a moment where she looks at the podium and just sort of mouths, wow. Like she realized the weight of this moment, which I don't think we see enough of from some of these high-ranking officials. I mean, the IOC moves countries in many ways, and that's a big weight. And she recognizes that. And I'm excited to see what she's going to do.
I am too, and I agree with you on the changing of the guard. I would, in a way, it's an element of relief because you're just like, come on, can you please elect somebody who's younger and move into the next generation of leadership? And then you're worried that it's not going to happen. Maybe it's because in our country, we have an issue with transferring leadership to younger generations right now. And it happened, and you can see it can happen. And the IOC has worked to really imbue youth elements into the Olympic movement. So you've got the Youth Olympic Games, which was a Jacques Rogue project, which has continued. They didn't stop it. And then all of the elements of adding urban sports and sports that would target youth better. And now you have a younger president who is hopefully, I'm not saying that T-Bach wasn't in touch, and maybe the IOC leadership being older, you saw that they wanted to change, but having this change happen is going to be a big deal.
And there's been a lot of push to expand in Africa. I mean, both doing the esports in Saudi Arabia, is it the Youth Olympic Games that are going to be in Dakar? So to have someone, a Zimbabwean, matters.
Yeah. So it's very exciting.
Okay, so we have a week because there's going to be so much information. In between the time we heard the announcement, you got the actual breakdown of the vote. So the news is coming fast and furious. We're going to digest it. We're going to deep dive. So if you have things you want us to deep dive specifically, let us know. And we're gonna have fun next week getting to talk about all this.
Yes.
We love some inside baseball once in a while.
Okay. Also from the IOC, they have made an agreement with Comcast NBC Universal to extend media rights to 2034 and 2036. So that agreement also includes a strategic partnership that goes beyond broadcast rights, which is going to be building on Comcast's expertise in technology and infrastructure to support the delivery of the games, support for in-venue distribution of live TV coverage, supporting OBS in the production of the Olympic video player. There's going to be a collaboration on digital advertising opportunities in the US. That will be also Universal and the agreement includes NBC Universal and the Peacock streaming platform. So this is a pretty big deal.
I hope this means that we will end up with more and better. Because if
so.
OBS is working with Comcast, that they're not going to have to duplicate anything, that they're going to be able to do more. Like, remember, who was it we were talking to about? Oh, it was Alexis talking about that you can only have so many cameras set up for live coverage, especially for para. That was a big
Right.
problem. So if you are not competing, as OBS and Comcast kind of were in the past, they would work together, but they were really competing. If you're doing more streamline, can we then have more coverage?
Maybe. That would be nice. Or their cameras share
Right.
kind of thing. So it'll be good. Apparently, this was a deal like a year in the making. So pretty big deal. I also wonder if that means that some of the docuseries that the OBS has been a part of on Netflix, I wonder if those are going to shift to Peacock at all.
Oh, that means I have to get more Peacock, more streaming
Maybe.
services.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, we'll see. Not a done deal, but there's something else to look out for.
It's a write-off. It's a write-off.
Also, Allianz has extended its top sponsorship with the IOC until 2032. That includes French Alps 2030 and Brisbane 2032. During Paris 2024, Allianz had a medical assistance program for athletes, staff, volunteers, and members of the Olympic and Paralympic families. They provided ticket cancellation insurance for fans and delivered property and liability coverage for many sports venues. So a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily see is what their sponsorship includes, but also nice that they have continued it. And also on the IOC session, T-Bach elected honorary president for life.
So we're not losing him. I'm so happy about that. He'll still pop up from time to time. But you know what? I have a feeling for Milan, he's going to be very under the radar because he's going to want Kirsty Coventry to have her first moment, but maybe he'll sneak in here and there. And
That would be nice.
we're like, who's that little German man sitting there? Oh my goodness, it's T-Bach.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be another situation where a whole bunch of people are crowded trying to get into the same entrance, and I will accidentally touch T-Bach's butt like I touched Sergei Bubka's butt.
Please don't do that. I'll be trapped in an elevator. It'll be an elevator situation. You know, I keep getting in elevators with people. Like I was in an elevator with Oksana Masters. I've been in some elevators, and I'll be in the elevator with T-Bach and Claudia, and I'll be just like, I love your husband. He's amazing. And I'll do something totally inappropriate, and they will just run out of that elevator. Oh, who is this crazy American? Welcome to TKFLASTAN.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners of the show who make up the citizenship of our very own country, TKFLASTAN. We have results.
So results from the IBSF World Championships in Lake Placid. Shannon Galea finished 28th in women's skeleton. Josh Williamson finished 9th in two-man bobsled with driver Christopher Horn. And 4th in four-man with driver Frank Del Duca. So think he's recovered from his surgery earlier last year. Whoop, whoop. Adam Edelman finished 25th in two-man bobsled, and Bree Walker finished 13th in two-man bobsled and 9th in monobob.
And I'm so sorry for Bree because she was one of the top monobobbers this year, and she was sick.
She was very sick the whole time. It was questionable whether she would even compete, but she got out on the track and she fought through. So good on you, Bree. I mean, that was no joke up in Lake Placid this week.
Wheelchair curler Steve Empt competed in the wheelchair curling mixed doubles championships and got the U.S. a quota spot for Milan-Cortina 2026.
Dr. Sarah Gaskin has been named head coach of the USA senior women's handball team. Her first competition at the helm will be the World Championships in Mexico City. This also means, I hope, she'll likely be sticking around for LA because the USA gets an automatic berth.
I hope so. We may have to get her back on the show.
I know. We got to talk handball again. We
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
talked to her since we were a different name.
Para-archer Matt Stutzman has been nominated for the Laureus Sportsperson of the Year with a disability, and snowboarder Chloe Kim has been nominated as Action Sportsperson of the Year.
Lee Kiefer has been inducted into the USA Fencing Hall of Fame class of 2025 with her hero, Maria Segunas. So they're
Get
going
outta
in
here.
together. I know. And Lee has also been nominated for an AAU Sullivan Award for the most exceptional collegiate or Olympic level athlete.
Phil Andrews in USA Fencing combined with several other national governing bodies for certain functions. We'll add this on to next week's show as well because it's really interesting. There's just a collective of sports that said we're coming together to pool resources for marketing and other elements to hopefully be able to target better sponsors together than they would have individually because they can bring a bigger audience together.
And Paralympic gold medalist Samantha Bosco got to design an LA28 logo, and her A includes a hummingbird.
Naturally. Did you see this?
The logo?
The logo, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used the logo, her logo, in my Substack newsletter this week.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Good. Oh, I'm so proud of this
Beautiful.
week. So proud of what I wrote this week. So
Okay. Good on that. If you don't get our Substack, you should sign up at flamealivepod.com. Go down to the bottom and there's a sign up. Or if you're on Substack, just look for us and keep the flame alive. Kenny Bednarik will be competing at the first Grand Slam track meet in Kingston, Jamaica on April 4 through 6. He is racing short sprints for the Racers team.
And Samantha Schultz will be appearing at the USOPC Museum's Spring into Victory Week. She'll be doing laser pistol demos on Tuesday, March 25th, Thursday, March 27th from 11 to 12 p.m., and on Saturday, March 29th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I think that is very cool that she still does stuff with the museum.
Laser pistol demos. Do you think they would let me touch one of those? Because I can't hurt anybody.
That's true, and I would love to do laser pistols. I would love if the UIPM brought back its laser run series. Maybe it is, and I haven't looked at it, but that is something on my list to try. That's going to do it for this episode. Let us know what you thought of Beyond Expectations by Sydney Collier.
And we do love hearing from you. You can chat with us and other listeners on our Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive Podcast. Email us at flamealivepod@gmail.com. And the voicemail and text line is always open at 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT. And as we mentioned before, you can find our newsletter on Substack. Sign up for that at flamealivepod.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Next week, we are going to do that deep dive on the new IOC president and look back on T-Buck's presidency. Yeah, get in on the Facebook group because it's already hopping with conversation about Keiko's presidency. I don't know if that'll stick or not, but I kind of like it. This is going to be the first change of leadership that we go through as a podcast. So we do want to know what you think of this change. Please get in touch, like Alison said, in email, voicemail, Facebook group, and our other socials. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, keep the flame alive.